Welcome back to Rebel Movement Podcast. My name is Billie. My pronouns are they, them, or she, her, and I'm glad you're here. I'm really excited to get to this episode with Piper. It's really an important conversation that I think is really needed because trauma is a complex topic. Diet culture is a complex topic. So you can't do the whole conversation as we name in this episode, but we center this conversation, or Piper mainly centers this conversation around a really important part of diet culture, which is shame. And I learned a lot in this episode. It's such a fantastic conversation. And Piper actually is very kind and gives us some things that we can do to help move through shame, help to care for ourselves when we have shame coming up, which is great. So stick around for the whole conversation. Before we get there, this episode of the podcast is sponsored by Move with Billie. Gotcha. I bet you thought I was going to say something else. But in case you don't know, Move with Billie is my other hat. It's my other business. And Move with Billie is online yoga, mobility workout classes that are not your typical approach. So I help people to heal from diet culture, help them to heal their relationship with their bodies, with movements, just kind of everything really connects. So it ends up kind of being a bigger thing, but I take an anti-diet approach to all of my classes. I also work with people one-on-one and also work with teachers so that they can teach in an anti-diet way too. I just want to give a little sneak that if you are a teacher and you're wanting to learn about how to teach in this way, you should probably subscribe to my newsletter, or at least follow me on Instagram to hear some exciting possibilities in the future. But even if you're not a teacher, if you're everyone's person, if you're a student of movement and you want to heal your relationship with diet culture, you want to heal your relationship with your body, if you are a person who has thought the phrase, well, I don't know what's wrong with me, I can't seem to start. Oh, I'm just lazy. I'm not good at movement. I don't know why I can't be consistent. I can help you. That's my whole wheelhouse with Billie. So go over to my newsletter. Link is in the show notes. And thank you for listening. Now let's get to this awesome episode of Piper. It's so exciting, and I'm not going to give spoilers, but this episode and the next episode go so well together. It's almost like I planned it, but I didn't. Enjoy the episode, and I'll talk to you soon. Hey, thank you so much for being here. I'm very excited for this conversation. Can you tell people who you are, like your name, your pronouns, and a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Piper Rose. Pronouns are they, them. I'm a NeuroSomatic coach, and I support queer folks with complex post-traumatic stress to really live beyond their trauma through somatic processing, nervous system retraining, and belief rewiring. And the reason that I'm here with you is because I spent decades struggling with disordered eating and intrusive thoughts about the worth of my body in this world, and also the painful and beautiful dance of expressing my transness and being in my trans body in society. I'm also like a total beefcake. I love lifting heavy things. I have found my joy in movement is
Awesome.
lifting heavy things. But I really couldn't get there without an authentic relationship to my body. And that wasn't a process that came easily. And after a lot of years of unsuccessful therapy and mindfulness, I found neurosomatic coaching and working with the nervous system, was able to get like out of my head and really into my body and figure out what it is my body really wanted in terms of movement and pleasure and connection and food and all of it. And so, yeah, that's why I'm here with you. And I'm really excited for our conversation today.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. I think that's a good point in that, everyone's journey is a bit different with healing their relationship to their body, but I feel like more often than we necessarily realize, well, of course, because we're having this conversation, that there's a big connection to nervous system, and it's not just I mean, I wish it was simple. Don't get me wrong. I wish it was as easy as just like deciding
Yeah.
you're not no
Hmm.
longer going to be a part of
It's
diet culture.
not.
It's not. Hence this conversation, which is all about the trauma of diet culture. But I know that we wanted to, for anyone listening who's like, hold on, I just started this episode. I have no idea what some of these things mean. We're going to do a little not like I was gonna say a catch up, but just a little rundown of some of the terms that you might hear in this episode and kind of what they are. Did you want to
Yeah, I can totally start.
start that off?
So
Cool.
I can do a super, super high level definition of the nervous system. So the nervous system is the body's like command center, and it's made up of the brain, the spinal cord, and nerves. And these are, these move through our whole body and they touch every part of our musculature. And it's very cool because the nervous system sends electrical signals or messages between the brain and other parts of the body, which control how the body functions. For example, telling the body to breathe or move or speak or see. But the nervous system also monitors what's happening inside our body, the felt sensations, the actual happenings, the rate of our heart, the depth of our breath, etc., and the outside happenings, what we're interacting with, where we are in the world, what is our relationship to gravity, to that tree, all of it. And it decides how to respond to different situations by looking at what we're feeling inside and what we're perceiving outside. So it does affect our bodily sensations, it interprets information, and it spits out thinking, feelings, automatic reactions like fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and flop. So it is us. It is us.
I love that. That's a very good explanation. It's often more, I mean, just like I just said, I guess it's more complex than we give it credit for sometimes. I mean, depending on which world you live in. I don't mean literal world. Like if you live in a world that is, you go to therapy or you are a therapist or you work in wellness or you work in mental health, likely how complex the nervous system is. But if you're not someone who is in that area, or you're doing something, I can't think of an example, like you're in construction or whatever, you might not necessarily know. It's not something I don't think it's something
Yeah.
that's as widely talked about.
Yeah, and because of like the Cartesian model of like I think therefore I am, right? We often can think of our thoughts as like this insular, isolated experience, but our body
Mhm.
is not, like an instrument. It's more like a symphony, and so there's a symphony of hormones, right? Like all these different types of chemicals, movements, that electrical signaling, messaging happening, right? Like we're not just like a brain in a jar with thoughts happening in this isolated environment. It's a full body experience every day, all day, every second.
Yeah, absolutely is. Absolutely is. Um, I can do a little definition of diet culture, and I think this will probably come up later on. I also just want to name that this is not the whole conversation. All of the
Yeah.
parts of this conversation, the nervous system, diet culture, the trauma of diet culture, is such a broad topic. We could probably have several like audio books, not just podcasts, like audio books
Yes.
about them all. So just naming it, I'll do if you've never heard of diet culture, it's all good. I'm sure a lot of you have listening, but it is a system of beliefs that favor body size and appearance over physical, psychological, and overall well-being. It favors thin bodies. It also demonizes fat bodies, and it promotes the idea that thin bodies have more value than any other. It's also important to name, I won't do the entire history because again, whole other audiobook, but the couple of, I think, tidbits that are really important in this conversation. The first one is that in 2022, the weight loss industry was valued at 503.8 billion US dollars. And that when BMI was developed, which is sort of, I don't know if cornerstone is the right word, but part of the foundation of part of diet culture, it was made in the 1800s by a mathematician, statistician, and astronomer. So not someone who works in healthcare or who was a scientist or, anything really to do with health. They used this data that was exclusively white men from Western Europe. So there was no people of color. no women, and all, I believe they were all military conscripted, so all very um, able-bodied, very particular backgrounds or sort of lifestyles. So it was not ever meant, even by the person who made BMI, was never meant to be used as a health metric. And it is at its core racist, ableist, and sexist, not accurate at all, and nothing to do with your health. A while after it was developed, it was taken, it wasn't originally called BMI. I should have written down what it was originally called, but anyway, we're not here for the history lesson. This is just so that you know what's going on. But a little while later, it was taken by insurance companies to be used as a metric of health, which then was used to deny people, particularly people of color, health insurance. So its very foundation is extremely problematic. It also is not accurate. So I mean, if you're just beginning this and you're just learning about diet culture, there's lots more resources and you can learn lots more about it. There's some on this podcast, not this particular episode, but previous podcasts. There's a bunch on my website, or you can always message if you're wanting to ask particular questions. But that's a little overview of diet culture, very touching the surface, but all super important bits. Is there anything that you wanted to Thank you. Is there anything you wanted to go over, or do you want to dive right in?
I feel like that's actually a great segue. So the connection that I want to make between diet culture and the impact on the nervous system is about stress. And I'm also going to add the caveat that there is so much more we could talk about related to stress, diet culture, trauma, the nervous system. And I'm really focusing in on one little thin slice today. So diet culture is extremely stressful. It's an unwinnable game, unwinnable game that exploits our fears about being rejected. And this touches into, like you said, real systemic oppression that punishes bodies that are not thin and white and able. So we are not only afraid of being rejected at an intellectual level, like it's literally in our body. Like I said, the nervous system is us. We need to belong. It's a primal need for our survival. So physical pain lets us know when our body is at risk of being injured, and shame is painful, right? It's the bodily pain that tells us that we may be at risk of damaging social relationships, our social tissue. So shame is trying to signal that there's a threat, and shame creates inflammation in our body, which affects our nervous system and can lead to autoimmune stuff, emotional dysregulation, blood sugar imbalance, brain fog, chronic pain. I mean, we could get really nerdy with it and go on, but that's a very neuroscience heavy conversation for another time. So I really want to connect diet culture, stress, and shame, and kind of focus in on that in this moment, even though there's so much more. So the kind of stress and inflammation I'm talking about is not just one-time stress. It's about the stress like day after day, month after month. And that type of stress can easily come up from shame because we've been deeply, internalizing messages of inadequacy and the threat of not belonging from so many different vantage points in our life. So it's very easy for us to actually encounter triggers that crank up the shame. I was curious if you have a relationship to shame, or if shame ever shows up for you, Billie. And of course, you don't have to share, but I was curious where you
for sure.
are in relationship to it.
Yeah, for sure. It's something, I mean, if we're zeroing in on the diet culture aspect, for sure, I think it's something that is a piece of the healing of diet culture that is quite commonly felt no matter where you're at in your healing. Mm-hmm. It may be less often if you're, a couple of years into your healing journey, but it's something that I think that because we live or we're raised in a culture, in a system that is intrinsically laced, feels a bit, we'll use it, laced with anti-fat bias. It's something that we're taught that our bodies are the problem. So even if logically And, emotionally, we've started to heal our journey or heal our relationship to our bodies. And we've started to care for them in a different way, even if you're at the point where it's neutral. There's still sometimes where maybe you try on a pair of pants that you haven't worn since last winter and they fit differently. And that immediate reaction is one that kind of carries you into shame. So I've definitely had those moments. I definitely still do. They're not as often now as they were. And I do have more tools to deal with them as well. It's like compared to when I started. One of the biggest things that helps me in those moments lately anyway is remembering that it's a $503 billion industry. So it's probably I think I feel like I've said this a lot lately. Maybe it's been on my mind a lot. The marketing, I forgot the word, the like marketing team or marketing budget, there we go, must be gigantic. And if they're spending, however many $1 billion, I'm sure, on marketing or millions of dollars to make us feel shame, it's not necessarily our fault if it comes up sometimes. It doesn't mean it's not something that we can then take and deal with, but I just something I see and something I've experienced is people who've so like working one-on-one with me and they've been doing some of this healing for years, and then one day they try on a bathing suit or they try on pants or they just catch their reflection in a different way than normal, and it all comes up and they're like, what is why have I gone anywhere with my healing? Is it like, what is the point of all this, or have I even made progress? And you have made progress. It'll come back down, and it's, I guess, just like, I don't mean to go on a little tangent here, but just be easy on yourself, because it's not your fault that it's coming up.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the thing I want to emphasize about the nervous system too, is that we aren't this brain in a box with like total control of every thought and feeling and behavior.
Mm-hmm.
The symphony inside of us is much more complicated. Shame itself is really powerful and complex. Shame can be about regaining a sense of control, because we can make the problem about us, right? We can say like, something is wrong with me, so then I can take care of it. It's an inward turn away from connection, is often about protecting us from bigger, more painful emotions or truths that we haven't been able to face before, like the truth of the ways that society has come for our beautiful beings with such vitriol. Shame is also about shutting down and de-escalating from connection if we feel that connection could turn dangerous, right? So if I'm connecting to the world's view of me and I feel it could become violent towards me, of course, shame is there. So shame's primary function is protection. So lots of compassion to that. Not only is shame trying to protect us, but it's physiological. It's a trigger. It is happening before we even have a thought about it. We don't get to think our way into, okay, I'm going to choose shame now as the protective mechanism. It is there because we are so primal and self-protective, which is beautiful. But to your point, before we start believing our shamey feelings and shamey self-judgy thoughts, like really to remember that shame grows out of the social conditioning. Like, we're conditioned to believe we're not good enough, unlovable unless certain criteria are met, and that we can't trust our own body to know what it needs. And at the intersection of all of that and capitalism is really where the pain and exploitation is. And there are many lies that seed and feed shame, and become really the infrastructure that, remember, the nervous system is about interpretation. So it's the infrastructure that the nervous system is within, attempting to interpret what needs to be done, or what action to take, thought to have, or how to protect ourselves. It's, and also stress, practically, as I said, it like impacts and degrades our bodies and our nervous system. And when it's chronic, it affects our ability to make changes in our life. So we are told we should just think our way out of it, and then we're going to do it, and we're just going to do it, and it'll be easy because we've got to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, and because it's all about willpower. And like, that's such BS, because when we are in a state of threat, like when our resources are like stressed and fried and depleted from this chronic stress, what resources do we have to make change? Change is a very resource heavy kind of activity for our brain. And it's just harder to thrive when survival is the focus, you know? And so I just like the compassion needs to get massive, 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 massive. And I'm so grateful that you brought up like these beliefs, because one of the things I wanted to bring as like a practical way to shift shame is about challenging beliefs. And I've brought like my short list of some solid lies that I think
Ooh,
are
nice.
worth challenging. And I love that you brought the capitalist investment in our own self-hatred as, you know, a reason why we keep getting these messages. Yes, challenge that.
For sure.
The other one I wanted to bring that I just mentioned was like the ability to make changes is a moral failing, and we just need more willpower. And like willpower is a finite energetic resource. Remember, we're energy. We're moving energy through the system. We got a lot of things to run. We got to see, we got to taste, we got to touch, we got to move. We're busy. We got a lot we need to spend our resources on. And it's finite. So it's not just I need more willpower, because willpower is a resource. And in capitalism, the truth is what we need is more time, support, comfort, safety, dignity, belonging, connection, money, right? Like when someone says you need more willpower, they're just emphasizing a capitalist idea. What you really need is to buy your way into accessible levels of resourcing yourself to do this thing. It's so shamey. It's so just messed up. So I hope that this also leads to more self-compassion, but an acknowledgement that the game is rigged, right? The game is so rigged.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. It's a very good piece, because it's one that you don't, I think that's a part of something you might see when you're in diet culture and you're going through that whole nightmare roller coaster of like, oh, it's just willpower. You just have to will it, and it, you know, you just don't have strong enough willpower, strong enough whatever. But there's so many parts of diet culture and like capitalism that are so sneaky, that they're sneakily telling you you're the problem. And that's not the only place this stuff comes up, because as I mean, you said it so perfectly, that it's going to come up even in the healing journey. Like, oh, why can't you just make a change? Why can't you just whatever? It's not that easy.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget 85% of diets fail. That's an exploitative trap right there.
Exactly.
And so stressful.
Yep.
Like we literally, it's the unwinnable game. But I have some other things I think are worth challenging. So when we challenge our beliefs, I want to let everyone know that also doesn't happen overnight. Simply becoming aware of something doesn't change our nervous system's ability to adopt that as part of the way it interprets the world. We build new beliefs out of repetition. We have to reinvest in the thing that is closer to the truth over and over, because that highly protective shame response relied on the other interpretation to feel safe. So we're going to acknowledge things today. And if tomorrow you're like, I know this, why am I still not, you know, changing or feeling different? Like, again, more compassion. It's repetition. It's giving yourself the support, comfort, and safety and community that you need, and then really going in again and again with that. So I want to say that before we go any further. So one of my favorite things to challenge is that your body is equal to your worth.
Yeah, me too.
Oof. Worth to who? Right? Whose gaze are we being judged by? What are your own standards that honor your integrity? I love challenging that one.
Yeah, me too. I think that's a very important one. And there is an aspect I'm just going to name, because I feel like it might be a piece that comes up for some people, that you hear that or you think of that, you try to explore it, and then you immediately go to, oh, but my doctor says, or whatever, or
oh yeah.
And I just want to name that diet culture. I mean, we won't go into it deeply, because again, whole other book, but it's not something that is widely discussed in healthcare or taught in healthcare, that a lot of healthcare is riddled with anti-fat bias. And just like do your best to seek other resources, and like whether it's podcasts or books or other people on social media or whatever that like you're learning more and more and more from, so that you can advocate for yourself. But just in case that's like a little bit of a barrier that just popped up, because I know it's not really linked to gays, but sometimes it's one that goes right to like gays, oh, but then health, but then doctor, whenever. So I don't mean to take it
Oh, yeah.
off your point, but I just wanted to name that.
No, I think that the gaze of the healthcare provider is also a gaze to be questioned.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
1,000,000%. How you are perceived and then treated. I mean, there's a lot of good research that suggests that the judgment, unfounded, right? Because we know the BMI is trash. The judgment one experiences in a healthcare setting or socially, right? These are two different gazes, but they all feed one another. That is actually more stressful than the size of our body.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely agree with you. And that gaze was pretty global, and is to think about what gaze we're being judged by is, and like, where is this coming from?
Yeah.
Family, advertising, healthcare. There are so many sources.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It is one that can feel very difficult, um, and can make some folks feel very small when
Mm-hmm.
they're faced with it, no matter where you
Mm-hmm.
are in your healing journey. And it's also impacted by intersectionality. And if someone is queer and in a fat body, or if they're Black and in a fat body,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to face much more, I don't know if medical oppression isn't the right terminology, but um, face a lot more, I can't, the word just left my brain, but negative treatment from
Mm-hmm.
the medical industry. That's not strong enough, but the
I mean,
oppression.
prejudice,
Yes, prejudice. Thank you. That's the word I was trying to
for sure. Yeah.
find. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they'll face much more. Sorry, I should finish my thought. If they're somewhere on that intersectionality, they are going to face much more prejudice from the doctor, and their health concerns might not be taken seriously. Like how many folks who have struggled with eating disorders, or who are in a bigger body, have gone to the doctor about something and they've immediately blamed it on your body size. Like I went
Yeah.
once
Yeah.
years ago for mental health concerns, and they pointed me towards a weight loss group.
Whew. Oh,
Yeah, so it's a very real thing that is awful to deal with, and way too common, unfortunately.
yeah. And coming back to the part about when you're doing some interrogation and challenging of this particular, you know, uh, quality of lies, going back to the, like, what are your own standards that honor your
Mm-hmm.
integrity? There's two parts to that. One is like, really at the end of the day, we go to bed with ourselves. And so we need to know what we are committed to, and how we can align our view of ourselves more truthfully with our integrity and our values, our dignity. And, it's also not a solo game. Like, we're out there in the wild with all these other all these other inputs, all these other gazes that are like really disruptive and challenging and triggering. And we also need community. So finding other people, resources, the media we consume, even, that helps us see that our alignment with our integrity is like a place where we can belong, that we have others in our life that also believe that are also fighting alongside us, that are also challenging these messages. Um, and so, like you said, just really getting access to resources, digging deeper, learning more, like really cracking open the lies that we're fed is just such a big part of it. But don't go it alone,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
otherwise we can snap back into that nervous system reactivity of not belonging. If everyone around us is like, no, there's only one way to be perfect and it's this, and we don't have like that will feel so unsafe for our nervous system. So getting community around it and other people who are also seeing what you're seeing and can validate your experience and what you're seeing and perceiving and what you're challenging and help you with that is really also key. It's us, and it's also what we surround ourselves with and the people in our lives.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Very well put. Thank you.
Yeah, because again, it's not just us. Like, I want to keep bringing it back to like, it's not just a failing on your part that you can or cannot access certain things. I do have a little practice for working with like shame triggering thoughts and these types of lies that come in. So instead of thinking about like every possible way that the world could be stirring up shame maliciously to get your money and your attention, and to get you to change your behavior to be more comfortable for whoever is trying to get that behavior change, it can be helpful to just start with your own sort of thoughts. So we all have a small selection of recurring thoughts that come when shame is triggered. This is because our nervous system, like, it seeks repetition, and then the more it does a thing, the better it gets at doing that thing. So it gets better at feeling the pain of shame, possibly losing our place in belonging, and then immediately coming in with these thoughts that change our behavior. Like, if I think, oh, I hate myself, then I'm going to think, oh, I can't do that. And then I'm not going to do it, right? Like, it's literally attempting to change our behavior to get us to move in a certain direction. So we all have these sort of recurring thoughts that influence our behavior, and write them down. Write them down and pick just like one or two and get to know the body sensation. How do you know that this thought is about to arrive, or when the thought is there, what is it that you feel? Because the body is going to communicate much faster than the thought. And by being able to name it and see it and sense it, we have more of a chance of changing it. So then you can notice the body sensation and then list out the triggers. What types of environments or messages or people or situations bring about this particular thought and body sensation? And again, just focusing on one or two. And then come up with a new, more truthful thought that you want instead. It can't be from a should or BSing yourself. Like, the truthful thought that could counter whatever that thought you just wrote is. And then when the same shame thought arises, you say that. Don't try to fight it, but just add the word and then the new thought. So I hate myself, and capitalism really wants that so that it can keep me down and buying stuff. So you've got to add this and what this does is it disrupts the black and white nature of the belief. And once you can do that, then there's a little bit of softening where you can possibly try out then choosing a different feeling or a different behavior, but you've got to kind of put a crack in the habitual programming. And really, like, as you're doing any of this type of work, focusing on stress reduction in the nervous system, otherwise you won't feel safe to even introduce this new thought, right? So whatever you already know that works for you, deep breathing, mindfulness, movement, like touching your body in certain ways, whatever you know works for you, you kind of want to sandwich this practice with those kind things for your nervous system. And I'll get into some more practical nervous system regulation tools later, but that's just one way of addressing kind of the onslaught of lies that trigger and govern our behavior. And you can really address it by just like, what are the reoccurring thoughts I have that change my behavior away from integrity and and dignity and showing up for myself. And so that's my little practice I brought.
Thanks for sharing. I love that. I think that's a great practice.
And we can keep riffing on beliefs that deserve to be challenged. I also said, as I mentioned, I do some like really functional tools for stress that are really specifically related to shame.
Cool.
And I also definitely want to talk about pleasure and joy in all of this, because it can get so heavy.
It can.
So
Yeah. We can go into that. I'm happy to go in whatever direction it feels that you feel called to. I'm glad for all of the conversations.
cool. Well, I would say I'm super interested in touching into pleasure and joy around all of this.
Sure.
Do you have any thoughts on how that relates to your journey and diet culture?
I might, but I might need more clarification on which. I might need some more specifics before I can share, if that makes sense. Like, could you give an example or talk a bit about it?
Sure. So what we feel changes our nervous system. So by focusing on gratitude or self-compassion, we literally change the lens that we see the world through, because we change our nervous system's chemical palette. We've taken a different set of chemicals and we feel a different way. So we literally see the world through a different lens. And we also seek confirmation bias. So when we're like feeling good, we are looking at the world through the lens of goodness, but we're also like seeking other ways that goodness can be around us. That is not entirely true, because as the saying goes, our brain is like Teflon for good things and Velcro for bad things. So at the end of the day, our primal self is probably more likely to survive if we can remember where the poisonous thing was or where the scary animal was, rather than where the beautiful flower was, right? Like our brain just does that. So moving into the possibility of feeling joy and pleasure and approaching our relationship to our body, the world, our thoughts, how we want to be from joy and pleasure, it does take effort, it takes choice, and it takes repetition. And
Absolutely.
I truly believe that coming out of, I really, truly, I'm on the like Adrienne Maree Brown pleasure activism train. Like, we're not going to love challenging these painful beliefs or doing the work of sitting down and writing out those beliefs and the new thoughts and examining things and actually redistributing resources so we can change if it's a slog and it sucks. Like there's gotta be some joy and pleasure somewhere in it, however small. Otherwise, like, why?
Yeah,
We're either, I think I heard one of my teachers say, we're either pushed by pain or we're pulled by desire and longing, right?
I love that.
And so we want a mix of both. Pain is a really strong motivator. Great, I'll take it. But we also need to be pulled by desire, because we are also made for that. We are made for pleasure. These nerve endings feel pleasure. We can feel love. There's a ton of pleasurable chemicals that can circulate through our body. So I don't want to make the conversation lack that perspective.
Absolutely. Cool. Thank you for that. I feel like there were so many different potential ways to go, and I didn't know how to narrow it down. So now I do. One of the things that is interesting that I've experienced, and I think it's not an individual experience. It's that diet culture kind of takes away the fun in movement, and because it's for punishment and it's for earning food and it's for all of this list of things that are all painful. But like, one of the things I like to do with clients, and something that I've done myself too, is like, when you were like a little kid, before any of this stuff clicked in a deep way, like, what did you love to do then? It's like hopscotch, or I just found this, I think it was called skip bow when I was a kid. That thing you like put around your ankle?
The thing you put on your ankle?
Yeah. Absolutely loved that when I was a kid so much. I found one at like a store the other day, and I got it because I was like, you know what? I loved this as a kid. Or, some people, it's like dancing or whatever it is that you did that was fun, that was like moving. And it doesn't have to be like traditional moving. Like it may not be like you loved swim class, but maybe you just liked wiggling around when you put like your favorite song on. But like there was joy in movement at once upon a time. and you can get it, you can find it again for sure. And maybe it's like you find a skippo or whatever it's called now. I don't know if it's called the same thing. You find one at the store and you're like, you know what, whatever, I'm going to try this. Like there is still ways for it to be fun. It does take a little bit of like pausing and being like, no, wait a minute, what did I like? And if you don't know, maybe it's like part of you has always wanted to learn to tango, or you like there's been times where I found like a dance class on YouTube that was like Britney Spears dance moves. And I was like, you know what? I'm whatever. It's not about being good at it. It's not about like performing it or whatever. It's just going to be fun. And sometimes it's like 5 minutes and you're like, oh, for 1 minute of this song, you're just going to like wiggle around and just let yourself feel joyful. It takes a little bit of time though. And sometimes it can be like, okay, when next time you're home alone, then you're going to do it because then you feel brave enough. And then maybe the next time you're like, okay, no one's in this on the floor of the house. And then you're going to do it. And you know what I mean? Just like little steps. Don't have to dive right in, but
yeah, I am so with you on that. And I really want to emphasize that even pleasure and joy can feel threatening to our nervous system because because so many of us are also indoctrinated into like, oh, you can be happy, but only a certain kind of happy and not that happy.
Oh, yeah.
And you shouldn't look weird when you're being happy, right? Like we actually get a lot of toxic messaging around joy and pleasure as well, and being in our body. You shouldn't feel good in your body. You shouldn't express sensuality. You shouldn't love something too much. You shouldn't let yourself have something that tastes too good because it's dangerous and you'll lose control. Like pleasure is dangerous too. It's like really, it's the unwinnable game.
It is like the unwinnable game.
Yes. And I love what you're saying is that in order for the nervous system to say yes, and it will always win, the nervous system is so primal that if something feels unsafe, it's going to pull out the big stuff. It's going to pull out the shame and try to pull you back into a cycle of coping mechanisms and shut down. So in order to move gently around that and start to retrain the nervous system that it's safe to pick up that skip boat and it's safe to just wiggle around on the floor, it's exactly what you said. You want to go so small that it's like laughably small, that there's no friction in it for you. You're not fighting at all. You're like, you know what? I'm just going to twirl my toes in one direction for 3 seconds. And your body's like, oh, okay. But actually that laughably small thing is repetition over time is how we retrain. So as much joy and pleasure as it feels safe, and mostly you'll know that because you'll feel willing to do it, curious about it, and differentiating like, is this a threat or am I just uncomfortable? And being like, I'm just uncomfortable. And then using those beliefs that you want to have, like we talked about that little belief exercise. If the belief is, but like, and I'm committed to like exploring joy for myself in a safe way, then that can give you some of the power and energy you need to do that small thing and then let it build. Just let it build. I think, mine, it maybe sounds a little saccharine to some of us, but like, honestly, if I'm a neuroscience nerd, so I'm going there, like what changes the brain is self-compassion and gratitude. They are big positive allies to change our brain, to put on different lenses that we see the world through. If I'm putting on the shame lenses, you better believe I don't see a possibility of me picking up that skip bow. I've got to put on lenses that allow me to see that possibility. So self-compassion and gratitude can change the brain. And, when we change our thoughts and our nervous system, we're interacting with the world in a different way. There's different possibilities, and there's a ton of resources for this, but a simple practice is just like saying or writing 3 gratitudes a day where you state what you're grateful for and also why it matters. Like, I'm really grateful for my partner because they love me unconditionally, and that matters, like, because they love me unconditionally and it improves my life, right? So it's grateful for and why it matters. But what's also cool is you can also think of someone else who was grateful for you. So thinking of a time when someone else was grateful for you, sometimes it's hard for us to really see our own gratitude. Like, If anyone was ever like, wow, thank you so much, then really tune into that. And you can also revisit the same gratitudes all the time. So you don't have to like contrive 3 new gratitudes a day. You can pick like one that is so powerful that really shifts your internal felt sense of the world and shifts the way you see the world. And you can do that one every day, and then maybe popcorn 2 more, just so that you're keeping track of what's good. And self-compassion, like self-compassion changes the brain. I like don't want to get in here and be like the insular cortex, and like I don't want to use big brain terms, but I'm just going to tell you, whew, that's a good one. And it is different than toxic positivity or hollow affirmations, right?
Yeah.
Toxic positivity is like trying to create an infallible identity with 0 dimension. I'm good, I'm the best, I'm worthy, right? It's actually also often informed by our society standards of worthiness and what we think we should say to ourselves. But self-compassion is actually about being honest and sincere. And when we speak kindly to ourselves, we literally change our brain and can affect our felt sensations, like I said. So we want our language to reinforce that self-compassion. So remember the and trick. Like if your brain is saying mean things, don't try to fight it. Add the and then speak or think words of honest self-compassion. So I don't like what I'm seeing in the mirror, and I am still here for myself and love myself, even when I have those hard thoughts, right? So you add the and that's really a really great way of sneaking in the self-compassion so it doesn't threaten the original thought, which is it's just a protection tool. It's not the truth. It's not the whole of reality, but its job is to protect us, right? So it's all we can see and hear. Just like if a tiger was running toward us, we wouldn't want to start also thinking about the beautiful flower. Our brain like simply would not allow it for good reason. So because we've already identified shame as being pain and threat related to social connection, that thought, which isn't personal, babe, it's just learned. We have to remember this is a protective thought. So in order to sneak my way away from like over to the flower, I can rationally discern there is no tiger in the room. There's no lion in the room. I need to sneak my way over to the flower. You add the and getting some of that self-compassion in. And this is like a true source of joy for me. I love to love myself. I can't always say that I was like this, but it is joyful and pleasurable for me to like protect myself, defend myself, not abandon myself, commit to myself, trust myself. Like these things have actually become like pleasurable.
I love that. It takes time, but you can get there. I love those tools, the self-compassion and the gratitude, and the breaking down like what you're grateful for and why. One way that I like to do this in movement classes, I usually do when I'm teaching, because when you're moving, especially if it's a new class, sometimes you don't always have the like space in your brain to be like, oh yeah, this is the perfect time for me to do this, do this thing when you're like trying to figure out where your legs are supposed to be. But I'll just start out there in case anyone, does have the space, is bring awareness. Let's just say, for example, you're doing something that's a little bit more, not intense, but like strength building, like squat or a like, warrior 2 pose or whatever, where you probably can feel your muscles working. I love to bring awareness to those muscles. You don't have to know where they attach or what they look like, whatever. Just bring your awareness to where you're feeling the muscles working, and take a second, even if it's like half of a second, and just like thank those muscles, like hold space for gratitude for those muscles, because it's a very real example of what they are doing for you right now. And it can sometimes be an example of what they do for you day to day. Like they help you, for example, if you're talking about legs, help you walk, and maybe even think about like they help you walk to your dance class that you like, or they help you walk to get your kids from school, or they help you to jump up and down on the trampoline with your kids, or help you to like reach for your favorite snack in the cupboard or whatever. Like however you want to take it, it's a really can often be a safer way to incorporate gratitude for your body that is not as easily triggered into diet culture stuff. Because if someone says to you at the end of practice or whatever, like, be grateful for your body, how many of you are going to just immediately have like walls come up and like, nope, can't do that? Definitely me for a lot of my healing journey and prior to my healing journey. But if someone says like, what muscles can you feel right now? Or like, what in a very physical, like, where do you feel this pose? Where do you feel this working? Can you hold gratitude for those muscles for holding the pose? It can kind of be a safer way of holding a little bit of gratitude for your body. So if that's something you want to incorporate in your gratitude practice, get real specific, because that can often be safer feeling than generally being grateful for your body.
Yes. And being grateful for when it can't do a thing. Like, thank you for telling me that was too much and it was time to stop, really like panning out. And there is a lot, like you just said, that repetition is key. So knowing the one or two things you can be grateful for ahead of time will save you a lot of mental energy. This is how we redistribute the resources. I'm not going to stop and try to think of all the ways that I'm grateful for my legs. I've got my top 3. I wrote them down before class. I take them to every class and I do it every day for a year, right? Like, it's really okay to go back over and over. Repetition saves a lot of resources and does some amazing stuff. And I also I think this is probably a good segue into some of the actual neurosomatic tools that can interrupt shame.
Great.
So you talked about the legs. So voluntary mobility drills, especially the lower body, like making hip circles or doing squats or shaking out your lower limbs, really is helpful for getting down and sort of out of our head and moving ourselves into awareness of that we are here, where are the edges of our body, that we are safe, that we are strong. And it helps to bring up a little bit of our energy, because shame is actually, it brings us down. We get slumpy, we sort of go down. It's not an activating energy like fight or flight, which is like, I'm going up, I'm getting ready, I'm getting big. Shame really takes us down. So voluntary mobility can bring us back into our body, our strength, and our ability to move and elevate us a little bit when we're going down. The other cool nerd thing is that the mobility part of the brain is right next to the shame part of the brain. And I can't just isolate one tiny part of my finger when I move it, right? I'm going to move the rest of my finger too. So same with the brain. If I'm stimulating the mobility part, I'm going to stimulate and disrupt the habitual sort of trigger that's happening in the shame part. So voluntary mobility stuff. The second you feel shame, move. And if you can't stand, you can just gyrate your arms, your torso, like torso and thoracic movement can be really great. You can simply lift up your gaze, because remember, we're going down. So you lift up your gaze, telling yourself from the outside in, I want you to go up. And then or like extend your back, thoracic extension, lifting your heart, right? You're going up, you're countering the physical habitual change. And this is a way of disrupting that learned habit of shame. Another one would be like facial nerve stimulation. Our face is really close to our brain. Getting some stimulation there can shift the way our brain is focusing on things and interpreting things. So just like making funny faces, activating your taste. Like, imagine that you're eating a lemon. Oh my gosh, I know that's wild, but even right now, can you imagine cutting open a lemon, smelling it, and putting it in your mouth? Can you taste it? Do you salivate a little bit? Right. So you can make a funny face, activate your taste, and just reconnecting with your body, right? It's shame is a bit dissociative. And so whole body tapping your whole body, adding sensory stimulus, like rubbing your hands together or rubbing your feet, helps us reconnect to our body and our choice to sort of like be and move. Now, I'm speaking about this a little bit emotionally and psychosomatically, like I'm feeling, I'm here, I'm present, but what's happening is the stimulation of the nervous system is delivering the messages. I'm safe, I can move, I can lift up. And that's very much a language of the nervous system. Stimulation and sensation are languages of the nervous system. And the nervous system, since it controls so much, it's not just about thinking our way through it. We actually have to stimulate the nervous system to deliver to the nervous system in its language. You're safe. You can move out of this protective response. You're here now, so I want it to be seen as incredibly highly functional and not just like the energy of or idea of, even though those things are important as well. Like I lift my heart and it's the idea and the emotion of getting big and taking up space. Sure, totally. And also I am functionally opening my nervous system in a way that is delivering specific messages back to my nervous system. And I also just want to say those were a couple really great ideas, things you can do, but a note on neuro tools. Every nervous system is different. This is why movement or breathing or meditation can be triggering for some people and not others. So every nervous system is different. And I'm not there with you to help you assess your nervous system as a neurosomatic coach. So I'll just give the general caveat that if you do any of these things and it's more dysregulating or starts to put you into states of distress, then that's not a tool for you. It's okay. There are other tools, right? So you want to pick something from the list that you either know works for you. Like, I know that walking around feels good. Great. Pick voluntary mobility if you feel shame. I know breathing feels good. Okay, great. Pick straw breathing, which is inhaling for 2 and exhaling for 8. Like, pick that. That's another tool I didn't mention, but I'll throw it in. So if you know something works for you, gravitate towards that anytime you feel shame, because the point is you're disrupting the pattern of the automatic system that's just trying to keep you safe. You want to disrupt it in the middle of it and give yourself some space. Give yourself a little breathing room to come back into the front of your brain and make a different choice or behave differently, right? But we actually need to move up and out of that shame response in order to do our best thinking or make a change. And again, that goes back to self-compassion. Like, it's not you, your nervous system is shutting down. Who taught you how to relate to your brain and change your nervous system? Probably no one, right? Like, and it's just a habit. It's just a pattern. It's not who you are at your core. It's not the total sum of what you are in this world. And so it's not personal. And sometimes we can only do as good as our nervous system can do, right? That is literally the best we can do. So more compassion, again, just more, let's just get it on there. Let's layer it in there. So whenever you feel shame, do one thing from the list. Give yourself compassion when doing something or changing something is not available for you.
Thank you. I love those tools. It's so helpful. And I love that you put in those caveats of like, if this doesn't work, it's not for you. Love them all. Thank you very much. Is there anything else that you wanted to share before we start to wrap up?
Yeah. Just the reminder again, like, as it's come up several times, but with all of this, everything I've shared, please start small.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Everything is not going to change tomorrow. And if you expect that it will, you will be so disappointed and you will be in a demoralizing shame cycle again. Start small and know that part of changing habits and retraining our brain, even training a muscle, is about repetition, resilience, doing what we're capable of each and every day. And that's it. And choosing ourselves over and over and over is one of the hardest parts about love and presence. And so start small and it builds, it does compound. And the successes, the wins, they're so important. Celebrate the heck out of them, and also feeling safe enough to make changes is critical. These are big primal protectors. I hope that you're taking that away. Is like, it's not personal. These are big primal physiological protectors affecting our thinking, our action, our feelings. So the more you can feel safe to make a change, the better. So I do it through neurosomatic work, somatic work, and belief. And any of those vectors, pursue it, right? Like, what do you need to believe so that you're safe enough to make a change? How do you need to hold yourself and your body to be safe enough to make a change, right? Like, really consider that. It's hard to make change when we don't feel safe. And so there's that. And, small, safe, and compassionate, right? Small, safe, and compassionate. That's the bumper sticker from this episode. Small,
Cute.
safe, and compassionate, and, nothing bucks the system of exploitation and oppression like reclaiming your thoughts, actions, and bodily autonomy. So, like, my heart is with you. And I want the best for every single person that this podcast touches. Just know that is like the truth of why I'm here. So reach out for sure if you need any additional support. And the last thing I would say is probably like, don't forget, we need resources to make change. And capitalism does not want us to have resources because that exploitation depends on it, right? So that can even start small. Your resources can be 1 minute of movement, or asking your community to support you in welcoming a new belief, right? Like, think about resource distribution as well, and more compassion. If you're like totally fried, change is going to be hard. It's not personal. It's going to be very hard, right? So breathe deep, stay hydrated, hydration, sleep, do all the basic things that you can, and tuning those up before you decide I'm going to change my whole reality. Like, that's another way we can start small. However, it's accessible.
Thank you. I really appreciate you and your time, and this conversation has been amazing, and I've learned a lot, and I know that everyone listening will learn a lot. Can you let people know where to find you?
Yeah. Okay. And first of all, though, before that, thank you, Billie.
Oh,
Thank you for all you do. I love following you on social media, and I'm always like inspired. And sometimes I feel like you make videos that I'm like, that's exactly what I need right now. So just thank you. Thank you for having me. And I hope I tried really hard to make these concepts really accessible. I know that they can be big. And so thank you for having me and trusting me with this and with your community.
Yeah, you did a great job. It was all accessible, just so that it was great. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. And if you're listening and you are interested in tailored nervous system tools and a path to retraining your brain and body for joy, self-trust, and presence, please follow me on Instagram at Shadow Play Coaching. It's all one word, Shadow Play Coaching. And you can connect with all of my offerings there. And I have a group program coming up soon. It's going to be my first group program ever. I've worked with hundreds of people one-on-one, but it's hard to work with as many people as I want. And also, I really feel like being in community is such an important part of the healing journey. So I'm going to be offering a discount to my first cohort. So please come check out my offerings, join my email list, and I'll let you know when that's opening, and come do healing work in a rad queer community. Bring it on in.
Yeah. Awesome. I will post the link in the show notes if you're listening and you're like, oh no, I'm driving. I can't write this down. Don't worry. I got you. It's in the show notes. And if you have questions for either of us about this episode, if you have questions for Piper and you want them to be, I don't want to say more anonymous, or you're not sure or whatever, you can always use those, at least in Spotify. If you scroll down, there's a little thing like, what do you think about this episode? You can just ignore that question and put in any questions you have in there. Or of course you can reach out to Piper. If you have feedback or anything like that, if you send it via email, info@movewithbillie, BILLIE, I will make sure that Piper also gets it. Or just questions, or however you want to approach it, but definitely follow Piper. I will put the link below. And is that anything else that I'm forgetting?
Yeah, just the caveat that I, as an individual, admit that I'm always learning and growing. And if there was a blind spot that I had, or an insensitive or unaware way of approaching or perceiving or understanding the world, or even your individual personal experience, feel free to reach out and let's connect in a way that moves us towards mutual growth. And also, who knows, this podcast could be obsolete in 20 years and it could be so cringe. I don't know. Like,
We never know.
Yeah, here to learn and grow. So that's my
absolutely.
final statement on that.
That's a good caveat. Yes, I totally second everything that you just said. Thank you so much. And I will talk to you soon. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
I hope you got all of that. Such a great conversation. Piper's great. And I'm just so excited that it's out there in the universe. If you have any feedback, I think I said this in the recording with Piper, but just in case, if you have any feedback or if you have any questions, if you have suggestions, if you want to be a guest on the podcast, you can reach out to me, info@movewithbillie.com. It's Billie is spelled Billie. And I'm just excited for you to be here. I'm excited for you to listen. Thanks for being here. Thank you for your support. If you have a second, I would love for you to leave this podcast a review and share it with a friend. So you can take a screenshot that you were listening, post it in your social media, and tag @movewithbillie. You can follow if you like the stuff that I do. If you want to follow me, learn more about me, you can always follow me on Instagram, or the best place is to subscribe to my newsletter. That's where you're going to get the most from me. And if you love this podcast, if you love the work that I do with this podcast, if you love these conversations, I would really appreciate it if you could consider leaving me a tip. There is a link in the show notes, and you should be able to also set it up so that you tip once a month if you want to. Even if you tip the one time, I can't remember if it starts at like $3 Canadian. May seem like a little bit, but it goes a really long way to help support me and this project. And I also, before we wrap up, just want to thank Elise for doing all of the transcripts for this podcast. It's so appreciated, the work that she does. And I'm just so grateful that she's doing that. That if you're wanting the transcript, it should be on my website. There should be a link in the show notes. If you don't see it there yet, send me a message and I can send it to you directly. And I think that's everything. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for listening, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.